How do you facilitate learning in a classroom, meeting, or event? I love the brain. I love how it works. I love knowing how to optimize the way that we actually facilitate learning, in particular collaborative learning. And I get to help a lot of leaders and educators all around the world help facilitate more interactive, more connecting, more engaged learning. So in this video, we're gonna dissect and pick apart one of my absolute favorite activities, group learning experiences to facilitate collaborative learning rather than just sage on the stage from one person learning. I'm Chad Littlefield, let's get into it. And to make this video a little bit more real and tangible and concrete, I'm gonna actually input footage from a live workshop that I led with a couple hundred people where I did this exercise, this collaborative live journaling exercise. One of the reasons I'm filming a video choosing to really break down this idea is in a previous video, I shared the idea of collaborative live journaling and it was super well received. People loved the idea, but they had lots of questions of like, well, how do you do this? And how long does it take? And when do you do this? And so we're gonna unpack those variations. So I'll show you the clip, how I led it. And then after that live clip plays, we'll unpack some really cool variations and nuances of how you can use this really clever exercise, really simple exercise with no prep, in person or virtual. Quick disclaimer before we just pipe in this live footage of me leading the exercise. This exercise was led as the official closing exercise to a 90-minute workshop focused on the art of remote connection. So one of the things that I teach on how to maintain a good cadence and energy for learning is always gotta be really deliberate about the way you end any given class, meeting, or event. Because the way that you end either a session or a day or a specific moment or class shapes the way that people will remember day 2 or meeting number 2 or week number 2, etc. And so being really deliberate in closing. So the closing exercise that we did was this collaborative live journaling. Admittedly, I broke my own advice and I didn't leave quite as much time or space. And so I think it was a little bit hastily or messily facilitated by me. But I want to include the footage because I want to just include this raw, this is exactly how it happened with a live group. And it worked, right? It ended up working really, really well. Probably just could have given it a little bit more time and been clearer and crisper with instructions. But even in this imperfect example, you can see how this can create really meaningful and facilitate really meaningful learning. So we talked about using the chat for sips versus gulps of connection. What I'd love to do right now is there's still a lot of people with some really brilliant stuff going on. I'd love, from your context, I'd love to know one like aha, something that you discovered in this time that you're really excited about that you'd love to share. And I'm gonna cue up that 2-minute timer again and would love for you to take the next 2 minutes to live journal in the chat to everyone, live journal in the chat, what your takeaways are, what some discovery is that you would love to share with everybody else here. So if 180 people write 100 words, we've got like 3 chapters of a book from people's collective brilliance. And who knows, maybe we'll have ask Eliza to turn all of these responses into 3 chapters of a temporary digital book and send it out as a follow-up to this. So just go ahead and journal some of your takeaways, ahas, things that really struck you that you think might be valuable to the rest of the group, but don't hit enter. So write them in the chat, but don't hit enter. There is a catch to this. We're not just gonna leave them in the chat either. There's like a catch that some of it is gonna blow some of your minds, because it blew my mind. And so type it in the chat, and when you're done, also copy it. Make sure that you copy it. You might even wanna type it actually off Zoom. So you might even want to open up something different real quick, a note or something, type it off Zoom and make sure that you can copy it. And I can reset this timer, so don't get nervous. I love music, and sometimes in something like this, silence is a really lovely ingredient to infuse into this experience. Just pause. Everybody copy what you have and hit enter. Copy what you have, hit enter. Holy smokes, I love it. And now I'm gonna screen share. There's this really cool site called futureme.org. What I'd love for you to do is go to, and maybe Josh or Will, if you can put that link in the chat, futureme.org. paste what you just typed in, and then go find some other brilliance that somebody else typed in the chat, copy what they said, and then come paste it into futureme.org. And what you get to do is send an email to yourself in the future at a time when a reminder of this haha or learning might be really useful. So you paste that in, you can pick, you want to send it in a year, or you can choose a specific date. Like, ooh, I've got a big meeting in 3 months, and I want to remember all this stuff right then, 2 days before. And so you pick that date. You can do it private. The coolest thing about this is you don't get added to a list. You don't get any marketing. It's totally free for everybody. futureme.org. It's a lovely way to end and anchor some impact. I'm gonna cue up that timer one more time, and we'll just go another 2 minutes to actually paste. 2 minutes with some music to read through what people have got, paste it into your future letter to yourself, and send it. And then as soon as this is done, we're gonna share how we're gonna do this Ask Me Anything. And even if you don't have a question and you wanna be a fly on the wall, feel free to stick around as well. Beautiful. Hope you loved and enjoyed seeing that live moment in all of its imperfect glory. Now what I wanna do is share 4 lessons or learnings, variations that you can immediately take this exercise and deepen it with your group. 4 ideas that you will leave with to be a smarter, better leader, educator, facilitator, trainer. Number 1, be really, really clear of the purpose. I think I did an okay job of this, but be really clear about the purpose of why you're asking people to do this and what is in it for them, right? So you heard me say the idea is to, at the end of this, to mine some golden nuggets and gems, have you teach each other, etc. This is also a really great way to review something at the end of a class too, if they're sharing, you want group to share takeaways, etc. So number 1, share purpose. Number 2, I would be really crystal clear and just simple about what the parameters of the exercise are. So for me, if I were to redo it, I probably would have condensed my instructions to, we're gonna have 2 rounds. 1 round, 2 minutes of journaling quietly with this instrumental song playing in the background. And then when that song ends, or when this timer ends, then we'll switch gears and have 2 minutes to read through everybody's answers and mine for value, etc. So right there, just make it really clear of like, those are the distinct timings, 2 different songs, right? So one might be quiet, thoughtful, thinking, one might be upbeat. I would make them instrumental because you don't want words playing while people are trying to read words, just too much for the brain. And you can also adapt that time. You could say, I've got a 3-minute song and then I've got a 5-minute song. 3 minutes to write, 5 minutes to read. Depending on your group size, you can pick those times, but just be really clear in what you're doing and that there are 2 designated rounds for both writing and reading. And the reason I would do that is I really want people in a collaborative live journaling scenario to write like several sentences, a paragraph, maybe even 2 paragraphs. I want them to go a little bit deeper than just like, here's a little nugget or takeaway, 1 sentence, because that's how the chat is usually used. And I think we can use the chat for gulps of connection and learning rather than just sips. Now, all of this can happen in person, quick aside, all right, with not sticky notes, but 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. Say, write big, maybe write in this size font and fill the page. And then tape them up all around the wall, and you have people journal at their seats first, and then you have a museum gallery walk of people walking around reading people's responses. In a conference room, in a boardroom, in a classroom, like really cool to have people's learnings literally tangibly pasted up on the wall, not in a sticky note bite-sized format. Learning lesson number 3 is there's so much gold there that I would consider doing this, if you're doing it virtually, I'd consider doing it not in the chat in Zoom, which is kind of hard to, you can download and save it, but it's in an ugly format. It's kind of hard to access. I'd consider opening up a Google Doc or a Google Jamboard, or having people record this in a way that's saved in a little bit more distinct, easily digestible format, rather than a really rudimentary online conference chat service. And if you really want to go deep, number 4 is there's enough gold and enough meat when you do this that could spark some really great collaborative conversations. And so I would also really consider having everybody journal individually first, then read what everybody's written, and then break out into small group conversations to digest and unpack and share what they thought, ask questions about each other, get even more practical with the examples or takeaways or advice that they have, ask questions to the group, etc. And so I might just create that open breakout time for a group at the end to dive a little bit deeper. That was really fun. If you're still here, this video on how to promote cooperative learning is really cool. It's got 8 specific ways to start. So this was an ending, a closing exercise to facilitate learning. This one has 8 really great ways to grab people's attention right in the beginning. Came from Ohio State University. I'm Chad Littlefield. Have an awesome day.